This is Mahadev, the Thunder Wizard. Solar Flash, July 1st, 2023. What will happen to everyone who experiences this shift that we are in the midst of when it is finally finished? Your 3D identity will have expanded into a quantum avatar. We will talk about this. Hello and welcome to the channel. This is the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel. If you're new to the channel, what I do here is I give you practical tools that you can use to completely shift yourself on every level. You don't have to wait for the solar wave event to manifest. In fact, you shouldn't. You can have the benefits of that now. I believe that it is important that everybody do whatever they can to prepare themselves, prepare their physical bodies, because this is a shift in frequency. And your psyche, your emotions, and your physical body are all connected. This is not a mental shift. This is a psychological, emotional, physical, spiritual shift. And your body will respond if you have allowed your body to be able to become more flexible and connected to higher frequency energy, because that's all that's going to happen. The only thing that's really going to happen on a physical level is that there is going to be a shift in the electromagnetic field of the earth, and it will shift up to a higher octave. That is just the scientific facts of it. The effects of it are a complete, total revolution in thinking, in perception, in your ability to create your reality. We're going to be talking about that. So I recommend that you do any exercise that will help you with that, any and all. What I offer on this channel are things that have helped me. I've spent my entire adult life studying, practicing, collecting, and synthesizing practices that have gotten me where I am. So if you're on this channel because you think I have something to share with you, then it is in your best interest to do what I've done. And so you can go onto the channel and get the free meditations, interdimensional meditations, free meditations. I'll give you one here on this video. The energy work, doing the Qigong that I teach. I give you, just go to the playlists and just do any and all of the free practices, the Hool Breath, the Awakening the Immortals. If you go to courses.thunderwizard.com, you'll see all of the services that are available, the Vedic astrology as well as the rune readings and the certifications. And my books, of course, Interdimensional Revolution is the latest. You can find all of them on Amazon, Kindle, and audible.com. My name, Michael William Denny, just plug that in. All right, so Solar Flash, July 1st, 2023. Your 3D identity will expand into a quantum avatar. What has been happening for me this past year, as you know, if you've been watching my channel, I have been in direct contact with higher dimensional extraterrestrial beings. And that is because I chose to. They didn't show up one day and take me captive into their ship or any kind of sci-fi nonsense like that. I made the decision to connect with them, and I kept at it until I made contact. And when I did, I found that extraterrestrials are not strange beings from other planets that that you see in the movies. They are higher dimensional beings. And so to live in a higher dimensional being by definition means you are in direct contact, perceptual, psychological, emotional contact with things that we experience in the third dimension as being spiritual. So that's why it's easy to spiritualize these beings, because they are in a completely different dimension, different level of reality. And by working with them on a daily basis, they completely, totally helped me, and they themselves also destroyed my understanding of reality and gave me opportunities to do the work, which I'm going to share with you, to do the work to allow myself to keep shifting up into higher levels, closer and closer to what people call the fifth dimension. I've been in, at least twice, I've been in states in my conscious walking around state that people might think of as the 5D. So I know what it feels like, at least, whatever level I was able to accomplish. And that was something that was given to me. I've accomplished that numerous times since on my own, both in meditation and in my physical reality. And I'm not saying that to brag, I'm saying that because you can do it. And what we're going to be talking about today is, again, we're going to be focusing on identity. So your identity is who you think you are. And you were born such and such date, such and such family, such and such place on planet Earth. And then you had experiences. Those experiences, looking at it from the outside, we could say those experiences created your identity. And that is true. That there is nothing untrue about what I just said. But if that's as far as you go, then what it means is that your identity will keep you trapped. So people who talk about being trapped in this prison planet, what they're really saying without realizing it is that they are trapped within their own identity. And again, we could say their identity was created for them. And there certainly are forces in this world that want to create your identity and have you stay within that identity. But it is a fact, it is a quantum fact that your identity is actually a construct. It is something that you constructed from birth. There have been tests that prove that infants, as young as like 3 or 5 days old, are already learning how to manipulate their parents through their behavior. And of course, the response that they get from their parents will have an impact on them. They will learn how to act. And of course, things will happen to them. They will either be, loved, or they will be abused, or they will be abandoned, or neglected, or confused on various levels. And their interaction with their environment and the people around them as an attempt to survive. Bear in mind, your first instinct from the moment you come out of the womb is to survive. It's your first instinct until the day you die, unless you have a massive transformation. Your first and only instinct will be to survive. And the first thing that infants learn is that in order to survive, they need to be loved. In fact, they have an innate need emotionally, spiritually. Their nervous system, their physical body needs to be loved. Infants will die from lack of attention long before they die from lack of food and shelter. This is a fact. You have to love an infant or they will die. You have to give them attention or they will die. And part of that is because this is how the infant creates an identity. Your identity is the software within you that allows you to function as an individual. And so if the software is well developed, if there aren't any glitches in it and it's a well-developed software, then you will be able to function well in third dimensional reality. But not everybody, I certainly didn't, not everybody has a well-developed, programmers. Your parents are helping to program. I didn't say they programmed. I said they're helping to program. They help to program your software called your identity. And your identity from a quantum perspective, on a 3D perspective, your identity is what allows you to interact and function in the world. I shared recently, I ran into somebody, I won't get into it, but somebody who said, I have been in retail for 38 years. In other words, her identity was, my career is in retail. And I shared with you what that really means is that she works behind a cash register and has been her whole life. And she believes that that's her identity. When she says it in the way of, I have been in retail 38 years, that you can hear in her voice that creates some stability, that she can say, I have a career. Because if she just said, I only have this low-paying job and all I've had is low-paying jobs behind cash registers my whole life, then that sounds horrible and you can't feel good about yourself. It doesn't sound good to others. But saying you've had a career in retail for 38 years sounds pretty good, even though the reality is you've been making 20 bucks an hour, taking people's credit card and giving them, checking them out of, whatever line they've been in. You know what I'm saying? And so that was her identity, regardless of what that meant. She might have been a manager, an assistant manager, but the bottom line is you get what I'm saying. It's just a job. And of course, that is my judgment of it and I don't have a judgment about it. Somebody could say, yeah, I've worked these jobs my whole life. If their identity, let's say it's somebody who lives on the beach and spends all their spare time surfing. Now they say, their identity would be, I live the surfing life. And I have this job over here that I've been doing for 30 years and it pays the bills, and that's all it's there for. But who I am is this. That's your identity. All right, so you get that. But what you may not know, if you haven't been watching my channel, is that your identity is actually what is creating, literally creating, not just creating the circumstances in your life, because even, life coaches will say that, what you believe is what you create. And what they really mean is how much money you have, or, how healthy you are, and whether or not you have a good diet, or whether or not you exercise. And that's true. It will create your behavior, which of course has an influence in your life. And all they're really saying is, pull your head out of your rear end and start exercising and eating well and, being more confident, and then you'll be able to create a business and make more money. But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that your identity literally creates all of the physical reality in your life. Look around you. Look at your house, where you're sitting. Everything, not just your physical body, not just what you make, not just your relationships, but literally every single piece of matter that you interact with in the world is created by your identity. That's how powerful that is. Now, if you didn't have this identity, what would happen is your physical reality would turn into nothing. It would just turn into a soup of atoms flying around. You can't survive in that. You would die. It would kill you. Unless you have something to replace it. When you understand that from a physics perspective, spiritual perspective, your identity is uploaded to the cloud, which we call the quantum field. That identity is uploaded into the quantum field, where the quantum field is creating your reality at your command, right? So in order to be in the new 5D world that is being created, the only way that that can happen is if your identity completely changes. Now, even on a, in between the life coach who says, your identity creates your world, and all he's talking about is how much money you make, and between what I just said, which was your identity actually creates every single piece of physical reality that you experience. And a level below that is what scientists and doctors and people pushing the boundaries of things, alternative medicine, and again, my latest hero, Joe Dispenza, is explaining that if you meditate, go to the quantum field, and basically what I teach, connect to your greatest joy and operate from there, you can recreate your whole body. And people are changing their DNA. They're getting rid of gene expressions in them, cancer and multiple sclerosis and, brain tumors and, whatever. And people are doing these meditations where they go into the quantum field and they access that quantum field. And what's happening is that they're distancing themselves from their identity. They're giving themselves a break from that software. They're sort of putting that software on pause, and they go into the quantum field. And then from there, because they're not being controlled by their identity, they can then actually recreate themselves physically. So I'm here to tell you that it goes much bigger than that. It's as big as you can imagine. My experience has been from the beginning of my interaction with higher dimensional beings, the first thing that they started to do was to challenge me on who I was. And they started telling me really, really unbelievable, grandiose things about who I was. I've written about it in my book, Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth. And their agenda was to get me to expand my identity. Now, just interacting with these beings, just the physical interaction with them already destroys your 3D identity. That's why it's so challenging for people the first time they do it. That's why it's frightening. Because what's happening is that your understanding of reality, your 3D reality, which is a reflection of your identity, that three-dimensional reality starts to come apart, which means your identity starts to come apart. And so people become afraid. And that's all the fear is. The fear is the unknown of who you will be when you stop being who you think you are now. So in order to get it to this 5D, we have to make a shift. And I left a link here in the chat. It says you are what you choose, and then there's a YouTube link. So that YouTube link is to a movie that came out, had to have been 10 or so years ago, called Kumare. And I don't know how that YouTube movie survived without getting banned, but you can watch that for free if you want. I'm sure you can go buy it on Amazon or whatever, but it's called Kumare. And if you're not familiar with the video, or with the movie, it is this American guy who was born in New Jersey to Indian parents who were religious. His grandparents were religious, and he was not into their religion. He didn't understand it. He didn't believe in it, and he thought it was nonsense. And he, again, this is his identity coming out. So what he did is he focused on the false teachers. Went to India, went to specific teachers, and he's thinking it's all nonsense. It's not doing anything for him. And so he comes back to the States and he decides he's a filmmaker. He decides he wants to make a documentary. And basically the theme of the documentary is that all of this is nonsense, that this spirituality, cults, he's conflated all this together into one thing in his mind, which is anybody who's a guru or anybody who's a spiritual teacher is a con man, or they're deluded. and how easy, basically, he doesn't say this, but the feeling is there, stupid white Westerners, how they just fall over themselves, which is true, for somebody wearing a robe and having an accent. And any desperate spiritual seeker will just buy into anything that comes out of India. And so he creates a character which he calls Kumare. And the character he creates says, he came from India and he's traveling in the United States to teach. And but his plan as the filmmaker is, I'm going to create a cult, and I'm gonna lie to these people, and I'm gonna pretend to be somebody I'm not, and then at the end I will reveal how ridiculous it is. And so he has this idea of what the film is going to do. And as you watch the movie, what ends up happening is that the thing that I appreciated about it, in fact, I think it's brilliant. What happens is absolutely brilliant. He's pretending to be this guy named Kumare, and he does a really bad East Indian accent. I can do a much better accent than he does. He does a bad East Indian accent, and he grows his hair out, and he's walking around with robes on all the time, acting like he's this, naive East Indian. I'm just this, but what he teaches is what he believes. So he will say to them in his very thick, bad East Indian accent, he will say to them, I am lying to you. I am not what you think I am. They will come to him and they will ask him, what should I do about my problems? And he will say, well, I don't know. What do you think you should do? And because they're taking it, they're seeing him as a teacher, they are responding to him and following his lead. And so when he says, what do you think you should do? They start coming up with answers. And then he'll say things like, I don't know what you should do. You know more than I do. You're the master here, not me. I'm just a fraud. But he's saying it like this, and he's very long, and so, but the truth is that he never lied to them in his interactions with them. He only lied to them about how he presented himself. And what ended up happening is that their lives became transformed. And he made up a meditation, which he called the blue light meditation, which is you just focus on the third eye and you imagine a blue light. And he made up a mantra. Now, all of this is supposed to be evidence about how stupid and ridiculous spirituality is. But his mantra, Uae, right? So he was kind of taking Aum, and he just said, no, those are 3 letters. What does that do? So he came up with 3 letters. Well, I can sit here and tell you what that means. He doesn't know. His 3D identity doesn't know. I'm sure his spirit did, but his 3D identity didn't know. But if you chant that, Uae, what you are chanting, at least from runes, are descending spiritual power, which transforms into spiritual communication, which transforms into intuition and trust, which absolutely describes, if you watch his students, how they transformed with him. And then as you get towards the end of the film and he realizes that these people's lives are actually getting better, and then he says, I have never had a deeper, more intimate connection than I have with these people that he's been teaching. And then you see him struggle as he goes to reveal himself at the end. The way he had it all set up is that at the end there was going to be this big reveal, and it was going to be an expose of the ridiculousness of, New Age spirituality. And when it came to the time for him to reveal himself, he couldn't do it. He kept with the fake accent, and he couldn't do it. And it was because he knew he was going to destroy this amazing thing that he had done. And you could tell that he couldn't tell that. At one point he says, I don't know who I am. And that's my point. What this guy did is actually a brilliant way. Now, unfortunately, he didn't stick with it. I mean, for me, I think it's unfortunate. He came to the end and he finally revealed himself, and he revealed himself basically that I've been BSing you this whole time. And, about 90% of his students thought it was great, and 10% were very hurt, and they left and they never talked to him again. And I understand why. Because he was using them. His 3D identity was using them for his own selfish, narcissistic point. And here's, I'm a movie maker, and look at this big splash I've made by exposing how ridiculous not only religion is, but when you realize that he's exposing how ridiculously naive and stupid they are. And I applaud the people who were big enough in that to hang on to the teaching and say, you may not think you're a teacher, but you taught. You may not think you have power, but you do. They saw the truth. The students that walked away from that, holding on to that, staying connected to him and having a relationship with him and continuing to do what his avatar had taught them, they were the ones who really saw the truth. My perception is that he hasn't yet. My perception is that he stumbled into his higher quantum identity. But his 3D identity is attached to, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a smart, intellectual, agnostic Westerner, and I'm exposing all this nonsense. And if he were to let go of that, that would be death for him. So what did he do? He held on to that and got rid of the teacher that he created. Now, he could have decided to drop the accent and say, you know what, I'm really from so-and-so, and what I've taught you is what I really believe. And the point I was trying to make is that, what he's saying, he said some brilliant things, which I tell you guys. He was saying, stop pretending you're these small beings. Stop being who you aren't. You are amazing. You are the guru. And of course, he's saying it like this. So I've left that on there for you to watch because it was absolutely phenomenal. People, people completely changing their body, losing, weight and changing their life and becoming more successful and getting out of debt. All the things that would have happened. And it was because he wasn't lying. That's the thing he doesn't understand. He wasn't lying. He was telling the truth when he was playing his avatar. He was being more truthful to himself as this fake teacher, quote unquote, than he is as this person trying to be, who he's trying to be now. And the difference is, I think Satya Sai Baba, I'm happy to be wrong about that name, but the guy who, he's dead now, but he was a very famous Indian guru con man who, up until his death, would, in front of people, he would make ashes appear out of his hand, or he would magically pull out jewelry and give it to people. And of course, it's just really bad sleight of hand. If you watch him, he's pulling things out of his sleeve, or he's got things taped under a box, and he's just doing really bad sleight of hand magic. And that guy was a fraud. That guy is a liar. That guy knows that he is lying to people so that he can take from them. When this guy was playing Kumare, he would spend hours with people for little or no money. I don't know if he ever got paid for it. And he was honestly there listening to them. He had no agenda with them except to have them find out their power. And he made it very clear. He never lied to them from the beginning. He said, I'm not who you think I am. I'm the biggest fraud here. And people, because they were presented that this was a spiritual teaching, they took it as a spiritual teaching. But what was really going on is that guy was in his quantum identity. And I'm here to tell you that your quantum identity is much, much larger than you can possibly imagine. That as I continue on a daily basis now, what's happening in my interdimensional meditation is that I'm not necessarily going and doing the CE5 thing where I'm calling light beings down and into my room and, you know, having telepathic communications with them, although that still happens sometimes. What I'm doing now is I'm just going straight to the source. I'm going straight to the quantum field and communicating with the quantum field, by the way, is as much an individual as you or I. I'm going and communicating directly to deities who are just as much an individual as you or I. They love you, they want to talk to you, they want to interact with you, they want to teach you, they want to help you. They're just, I mean, that's the best way to put it. I'm on, you know, first name basis with the creators of the entire cosmos, and they're just beings that are in higher dimensions. But what's happening is that as I'm interacting with them, they will say, so we have to tell you something. Okay, what? This is what you really are. And then they'll tell me something completely unbelievable. But I am here to tell you that I have come to the conclusion that every single human being who has incarnated in 3D Earth is actually a divine deity. Like, you pick it. Pick your deity. Whatever deity you want. That's you. And then, of course, there's the other truth beyond that, which you find in, you know, the basic truth of just worshiping Shiva. You know, anybody who worships Shiva, the main teaching is that you are Shiva. And self-realization is to realize that you are infinite. But we all say that, and we don't really mean it. We say it, it sounds good, but we don't really mean it. But what if you were to really acknowledge that you were Shiva, you were Kali, you were Rama, you were Krishna? Not that you are part of Krishna, not that you are connected to Krishna. No, that you are Krishna. You. What if you were to accept that reality? What would that do to you? And that's something that can only be experienced. You know, you can run into that philosophy and chew on that philosophy intellectually. Yes, I am Shiva, we are all Shiva. And that's not what I'm talking about. That's just kind of mental masturbation. That's really nothing. But when you really choose to believe it, that's a whole different deal. And so this is the war of the narrative. Now, if we boil it down, the narrative, whatever it is, the COVID narrative, the any of the narratives that are going on right now, this is the battle. The battle is between whether or not you choose to be a small being that is able to be controlled, that has to be part of the group, or if you are in fact the most powerful deity in existence. And the only difference between you in this state and in the state of being, you know, creating entire worlds is simply the identity that you choose to accept about yourself. So the thing about identity is created by your actions. That's kind of my point with Kumare. Kumare completely committed to his role. And he took the actions. He lived as if. He took on the character. I mean, he wasn't like lying and laughing. He decided, I'm going to take on this character. I'm going to live this character. And so he did all of the actions that a Himalayan master would do. His physical life, he took all of those actions. In all of his interactions with his students, he never deviated from the actions that his character would do, even though it might be different from what he would do and say. And because he stayed focused on the actions actually started changing his identity. And what ended up happening is that he started experiencing, and his students started experiencing, incredibly powerful energetic transformations. He'd walk in the room and they would say, you know, your energy is really intense. I felt it the moment that I met you. When you did the blue light meditation and you touched your third eye, you know, I felt all this energy and my life changed and I saw myself from... He ended up having the exact same reality created for him based on the actions that he took. Your identity is who you tell yourself you are. And you justify and recreate that by taking the actions. Now I'm getting back to what will be most helpful for you is that one of the main things that people ask me on my channel and in my work with clients, one of the main things people ask me is they ask me, how can I get over my feelings? If I talk to you about how victim mentality creates your reality and creates all the misery in your life, people will say, how can I crush my victim mentality? And I always respond the same way. I said, when did I tell you you were supposed to get rid of your feelings? When did I tell you you were supposed to get rid of your fear? I never once told you that you had to get rid of your fear. The only thing I teach is that you have to act fearlessly. And as my ancestors said, those who die in battle go to Valhalla. Not those who never have fear go to Valhalla. No, those who take the action of dying, those who put on their armor and get out their swords and their bows and arrows and go out knowing that they're going to have to kill or be killed, and they take the action, those are the people that go to Valhalla. Not the people who overcome their fear of battle and then go into battle. So this guy never got over his feeling that he was this agnostic, son of Hindus growing up in New Jersey and didn't believe in religion. He didn't believe in any of it. But he took the actions as though he did, while still being true to himself, which is his main teaching to these people, that he didn't feel he had the authority to teach while he was in his normal self. When he put on the robes and grew his hair out and talked in a ridiculous accent, then he felt that he had the authority to tell people that you are a powerful being. You are the guru. You decide your fate. And when they come to him and said, I'm overweight and I can't stop eating food, he never gave them a diet. He didn't tell them meditate on this. He said, what do you think you should do? And then he would say things like, listen, I'm not the guru here. You are. I'm just here to reflect back to you that you have the ability. And they heard that. They heard that as a spiritual teaching. And so what did they do? They changed their behavior. The feeling that came up in them because they believed in what he represented and they took action on it. Until then, they didn't believe their actions had any ability to change anything. But even without telling them, he gave them the ability to believe that they had the ability to do and act the way that they wanted. And it turned out to be true. And all that was happening, in case you want to know what a true teacher is, all that was happening is that he was holding space for them. He had no agenda on them. And he was holding space for them. And they projected onto him their higher self. And so when he said to them, I don't know, what do you think you should do? They were now in a receptive state to not react from their identity that they created. And they were now ready to listen to their higher self that spoke to them. When they walked out of that, they said, oh my God, he's such an amazing guru. He's so wise. He has this power to help me connect to the infinite, which is exactly what he was doing. And any teacher does that. And now you understand, those of you who think you don't need a teacher, you're listening to me and you say, see, you don't need a teacher. You absolutely need a teacher. Because if there isn't an external symbol then you aren't able to project your higher self onto that symbol. And projecting your higher self onto that symbol is what allows you then to believe that you can take different actions. And make no mistake, it is the actions that change you. But once you take the actions of a successful person, a happy person, a healthy person, you believe you are a successful, healthy, happy person. Because you are, and you're acting like it. So the quantum identity is the same exact principle, except that you start acting from your divinity. And you start asking yourself, well, if I really was Kali or Shiva or Vishnu, and I was incarnated in this 3D body, what does that mean in terms of my actions? Well, I'll tell you one thing it means. I sure as hell am not going to worry about things like money. Vishnu doesn't worry about that. Vishnu knows he can go into the quantum field and manifest whatever the hell he needs. And he knows, as Vishnu, he knows that the quantum field will obey him. As Vishnu, he knows he will never do anything that is harmful to any other person. So he doesn't have any, guilt about it. He knows that he will never take action if he's afraid, oh my God, as Vishnu, if I'm Krishna, for example, Krishna, one of the things about Krishna is that women just throw themselves at him. If he says, oh my God, if I'm Krishna walking around on earth and women start throwing themselves at me, what am I going to do? Well, if he really believes he's Krishna, he's going to go, well, I'm not going to abuse that. I'm going to love them unconditionally. I'm not going to use them for my own personal. It's all based on what actions you choose to take. It's got nothing to do with how you feel. You can be full of lust, you can be full of greed, you can be full of all those things, but if you know, but that's not who I am, I don't act that way, and you act the way you've decided that your character acts, you're going to become that person. This is, by the way, this is the basis of all 12-step recovery. This is how, in case you don't understand, I've been alive long enough to remember, but even before I was born, when Alcoholics Anonymous first came about in the 1930s, alcoholism was a much different disease than it is today. When somebody was deemed an alcoholic, when that label was put on them, it was a death sentence. And it meant that they were either going to die in the street or they were going to be locked up in a straitjacket and die in a loony bin. Those were the two options. In fact, the guy who started Alcoholics Anonymous, his wife was trying to help him, and she was touring, going into all the loony bins. And there was a movie that came on TV about Bill Wilson, the guy who started AA. And his wife is, she doesn't know what else to do with him. And she goes to this loony bin, that's advertised as a place of, a hospital for alcoholics. And as she's touring in there, there's guys in straitjackets, locked in cells, and they're screaming in pain. And she's absolutely horrified at this as she's walking by. There's this guy in a straitjacket, and he's screaming in pain. And the doctor says, he's not really in pain, he just thinks he is. That was where alcoholics went. Nowadays, that's, there's been, since the 1980s, there's been, these places where, alcoholics and drug addicts go, and have a vacation and, all that. And that's what we think of, getting off of drugs and alcohol now. But that's not the way it was. And that was the impact of the 12 steps, that people who were incurable were curing themselves. Not only were they curing themselves of alcoholism, they would then go on to become extremely successful, healthy people and live decades and never drink and be happy and, ask what do you do? I say, I work the 12 steps. Of course, unless you work the 12 steps, you don't know what any of that means. But the 12 steps are designed basically to help you create a new identity for yourself and then act on it. Now, in order to create a new identity for yourself, here's the thing that you may not understand. It's not about just, oh, I'm going to think myself into this idea. You have to have a spiritual connection, because you cannot, in your third dimensional identity cannot create a quantum identity within itself. So this is how you have to tap into something greater than yourself. 12 steps. People make fun of the 12 steps all the time, especially people who are afraid to change. They'll say, I don't want to admit that I'm powerless, because that's the first step. You're powerless over whatever it is. Alcohol, drugs, sex, gambling. And people don't want to do that. Because when you say I'm powerless over something, you have to accept that your identity cannot cope with this. And then the second step, I'll have to make a video about it. The second step says that you've come to believe that a power greater than yourself can restore you to sanity. It doesn't say you believe a power greater than yourself can heal you of alcoholism or give you the strength not to drink again. It never says that anywhere in the 12 steps. Second step says you believe that a power greater than yourself can restore you to sanity. It means you accept that you're insane. And if you believe that you are the identity that you say you are, from a quantum perspective, you are insane. Shiva, the great god, the king of the gods, the transformer of worlds, if he becomes an avatar in 3D and believes his name is John Smith, the rest of the gods are going to go, you're crazy. That's not who you are. You are much greater than that. But if he's been completely hypnotized by his identity, John Smith, he's going to go, no, I'm not a god. That's crazy. If I believe that I'm actually supernatural and multidimensional, then I'm crazy. No, my safety is in remembering my little identity. John Smith, I walk down the street, I do this, I work at this job. I'm not going there, because he believes his identity keeps him alive. So in order to let go of that, he's going to have to lose his mind. He's going to have to go crazy, because his mind is this small, and he's going to have to lose that mind and then grab a larger one. And then when you grab onto a higher identity that you didn't believe you were, even if you still don't believe it and you act on it, all of a sudden everything starts changing. So the thing that I learned when I was when I'm communicating with higher dimensional beings and they say things that absolutely, completely destroy any of my little identity of who I am. I learned, in order to keep my sanity and to keep my physical body intact, literally, I had to do two things. I had to accept what they were telling me at face value in meditation. And in fact, I still do it. I'd repeat back to them. They'd say, you're an infinite deity that created this universe. And I would say, I'm an infinite deity that created this universe. I'd repeat it back to them because I needed to for my sanity. And then I would get this flood of energy going through me that would just, crazy amounts of energy. And of course, that would mess with my sanity. And then I'd come back, out of the meditation. And then I would resist the temptation to try and figure out what just happened. I would look around and I would go, yep, I'm still three-dimensional. I have two hands, I'm this, I'm 5'9". These things are all true. And I'm not going to figure out what just happened. I just accept it. And what ends up happening over time is that this new identity that these beings are presenting to me starts to expand into my consciousness more and more and more. And then I start acting differently. And not only that, but then when my normal 3D, craziness jumps in and I get offended or I get hurt or I get frightened. And all of those feelings jump in. The feelings, by the way, aren't lessened. They're more intense. The reason why they're more intense is because I haven't grabbed onto them and rooted them into my identity, which I've come to find out that's one of the things that makes you feel better when you're feeling really intense and crazy. You believe it, and then you start reacting to it. Like, I'm going to tell that person off, or I'm going to go, watch porn for an hour, or I'm going to go do something to get my mind off it, or I'm going to get mad, or I'm going to get drunk. Or whenever you do that, you lessen your experience of the feeling, but then you root it into your identity, which then sends a message to the quantum field to create that reality. You've just rooted into yourself. So when I don't attach to it, the emotions start to get stronger and stronger and stronger. The anger builds, the fear builds, the confusion builds, and it starts to bounce back and forth between my mind and my nervous system, all giving me these impulses to go do something, to take some kind of an action. And now I realize as long as I don't take any action on those feelings, it can't root itself into anything. And then eventually what ends up happening is that I have an epiphany, I have an awareness of what I am afraid I'm going to lose if I don't take action on this feeling right now. And then I become aware that that fear is ridiculous. That fear doesn't mean anything. And when I come to that point, then the feelings start to fade away. They sort of bounce around and they kind of fade away. And then what's left is my identity sort of pops open and enlarges itself. And I have greater peace. And then I realize, oh my God, this reality really is. It's an illusion. Which is why the second step says, came to believe that a power greater than you, the quantum field, the ocean, the sun, God, whatever it is, any power that's greater than that limited identity you just created can restore you to sanity. And what is true sanity? True sanity is realizing this reality doesn't exist. It's a complete construct that you've created it. You keep creating it from the quantum field every time you take an action based on your identity. You keep creating it. And not only that, but the person you thought you were, born me, 1963, Glendale, California, that actually it didn't happen. I have been alive long before then and long after that. That's not me at all. It was a character. I don't have to identify with that guy at all. It's not who I am. That past memory doesn't exist. It literally does not exist unless I choose to take actions based on what that character says my limitations are. And if I act on that, then I keep recreating it. But if I don't act on that, and I don't let it take hold of me, I can decide to be whoever I want. Which means I can decide to be how old I am. I can decide to be how healthy I am. I can decide to be how happy I am. I can decide to be whatever I want. And then when I'm not constrained by that, I can go into interdimensional meditation and I can create whatever universe I want, which is what I'm doing. So this is, I'm giving you my experience, and I think this is what is going to be the case for everybody who gets into 5D. I don't need to be right about any of this. I'm not attached to any of it. I'm perfectly happy to be wrong or, not have all the information. And if I get new understandings, I'll tell you. But I'm telling you that if you do what I'm doing, you're going to have some similar experiences. So I'm going to look at the list that I gave you last time, and I'll open it up to questions. Let's see, is this the one? No. So, quantum field meditation to reprogram 3D physical matter into whatever you choose. Number 1, do the Hool breath, lightning, qigong, or any meditation for at least 10 minutes. That's So you can get out of the self-reflective mirror, I am this and the world is that and I feel this way about it. Any kind of meditation will sort of put that on pause and detach you from that long enough so that you can actually do some work. Number 2, do interdimensional meditation. You just simply project your consciousness outside of Earth's orbit. Number 3, you mentally invite any and all higher dimensional beings to help your meditation to go to the quantum field and reprogram your physical reality. Number 4, you travel to the light realm at the center of the universe, which is another way of calling the quantum field. Number 5, you imagine whatever you wish. You're being completely healed of all of your illnesses, prosperity, you want to get out of debt, you want to have money, you want to be happy. Spending time creating the new earth where Skittles fall out of the sky and unicorns take you to France or whatever you want. Number 6, repeat phrases like I am God, I am infinite light, I am love, or whatever turns you on. Whatever it is, just repeat those phrases. You don't have to believe it. It's pure fantasy here. It just turns out that your fantasies are more real than you realize. Number 7, when you've done all of that, you thank your guides and ask for any words of advice or healing. And maybe you'll get a telepathic message, maybe you'll get a feeling, maybe you won't consciously have anything happen, but I guarantee you something will happen at some point where you will learn something. You'll have an awareness at some point, maybe tomorrow or the next day or next week, but just by asking them to give you words of advice or healing, it will come, guaranteed. Number 8, come back to Earth, hover above your body and transmit healing and power. So tell yourself, you're amazing, you're strong, you're 10 years younger, whatever it is you want. And then allow your energy to come back into your body, rub your eyes and write down whatever you were told and whatever you saw and experienced. Okay, if you want, you can press pause on this and look at that, write it down, whatever. All right, I'm happy to take any questions if there are any. By the way, listen, I'm working on this. I am working on how to encourage people, and I'm looking to improve that. But at some point, what has happened is that it becomes clear to me that people have been programmed not to do the work, not to put any effort into things. So if I get frustrated with you, don't take it personally. And unless you want to hang on to it, if you want to get mad at me because I told you, get up off your ass and do something. If you want to get mad about it, you can. That's you just creating your identity. But if you can listen to what I'm trying to say underneath it and put that into action, my experiences, it'll be helpful for you. So, anyway, but my apologies again. There's people who've gotten very upset, and I actually had to block somebody because all they were doing was just attacking me in the comment section and being mean, and I'm not gonna engage in that. So it's just better to block them. I don't want to have to block anybody. You can tell me your feelings. You can say, when you told me to get up off my ass, it really hurt my feelings. You can say that. That will open up a dialogue that will help me and that will help you. But just turning around trying to be mean to me, that doesn't accomplish anything for anybody. All right, so let's take a look, see if there are any questions. All right. Okay, Vincent.thunderwizard.com. He's talking about his book. So you can go to his website for that. All right, let's see. Again, I'm looking for the questions and the feelings. So, Moromina Olemnima, you've been on here for a while. So you should know. Here's now, don't get your feelings hurt, but you should know. How this works is, as you can see, beneath you, Agent of the Universe, what did he do? Do exactly what he did. Why? Because then I'll see your question. If you don't let me know your question is there, as you can see, I pass by anything that's not a question. So pay attention and put effort. The two most valuable things you can do in this life. Pay attention when I say, if you want to write a question, write the word question in all caps. And then put effort, which means do what I just asked you to do. Because otherwise, I won't see it. You'll get your feelings hurt, and then I'll get frustrated with you that you weren't paying attention. All right, so you ask, why did we incarnate here, Earth on prison planet? So, Mina, here's my feeling about you, and I don't know if this is true, but the feeling I get is that you aren't doing any of the practices. Am I wrong? That you're not doing any of the meditations, you're not subscribed, you haven't read any of the books. You come on when you watch the video and you leave nice supportive comments, but are you doing any of the practices? The reason why I say that is because I can tell by people's questions where their mindset is at. And you also know that I've said many, many times why we incarnate. In fact, you can go onto the channel, and if you know, and I want everybody to learn how to do this. Learn how to search within my channel. Do you want to know how to do that? You go onto the channel page, and if you're on, most people aren't on even laptops anymore. But if you're on a laptop or a desktop, you go to the magnifying glass, you click on it, you put in whatever search term you want, and all of the videos in my channel that are associated that will come up. And if you aren't on a laptop, you can do it on your tablet or on your phone. I know it's challenging, it's not easy to do, but if you don't know how to do it, there's this thing called the internet. You can Google how to put a search term into somebody's YouTube channel, and videos and articles will come up. Again, people don't put the effort into getting what they want. The thing that pissed off was this very thing, that pissed somebody off so much that all they did is started attacking me, was that they unfortunately didn't hear my point, which is, I guess that's my fault too. But the point I want you to understand is that the way this world works is that you must be willing to never be defeated. If there's something that you want, you must be willing to do whatever the hell it takes to get it. If you don't have that attitude, this reality will talk you out of it. You will give up. And then you will believe it. But if you have the commitment within yourself that the most important thing, and this again is my book, The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. Everybody should read that. My book, The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life, I basically tell you there's only one thing that you're required to do on this planet, and that is to go after everything that brings you joy, and only those things that bring you joy, regardless of what anybody else says, regardless of what physical reality tells you is possible or not is possible. You never give up until you get what you want. And in order to do that, you have to believe that you're going to get it. And because people don't believe that and people give up, they won't bother to go. I mean, the obvious thing is, he says I can go and put a search term into his YouTube channel. I don't know how to do that on my phone. It doesn't even dawn on them to go, oh, why don't I just Google that? And if you have the feeling, the commitment of I'm going to do whatever the hell it takes, then you're going to go through, what can I do to make that? Oh, I can Google it. I can go to the library. I can get up off my ass, go on a bus and go to the library and look it up. You'll do whatever it takes. I encourage everybody to do that. That's how this works. That's how this reality has been for me. So I encourage you to do the same. So, Moromina, I don't know how to pronounce that. I talk about why we incarnated here on numerous videos that I know you've watched. So instead of me making it easier for you, I want you to go back and look for it. Because you deserve to know. And it's out there on my channel. Many, many times I've said why. And I've told you what it means. Even in this video, I've talked about the prison planet. So again, the Earth isn't the prison planet. Your identity is your prison. And your identity is you've created an identity where you're trapped on a prison planet. So you don't ask me why you live in a prison planet. Ask yourself, why did I create a reality where I think I'm in a prison planet? That's the question you should be asking. Why did you create it? Because nobody else created it. Why did you incarnate into this life to have the experience of feeling like you're trapped in a prison? You obviously feel that way. You're not alone. But if you are watching my videos, then you know that I say that you must take full responsibility for everything in your life, including your incarnation. You had abusive parents that did horrible things to you. I mean, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But if somebody did, you have two choices. You can either be victimized by that, and I'm not taking away your pain. I was victimized as a kid. I went through a lot of pain. I'm not in that state now, but I have been. So I'm not taking the pain away, but part of what healed me was saying, all right, I chose to be here. I don't know why I did, but I know I did, and I want to figure that out. So why are you asking me? I don't know why you incarnated on a planet that you experience as being a prison. You ask yourself that. What was it you wanted to learn? I don't know what you came here to learn. You tell me what you came here to learn. Agent of the Universe question. Can I have a light being as a teacher? You mean as opposed to what I'm telling you, which is you need to have a physical guru? Light beings have always been teachers. They're called spirit guides. They're called angels. But they do not take the place of a physical teacher. No, they don't. And if you want one, go get one. And you ask me where? I don't have the money. I don't know. That's for you to find out. You ask yourself that. How can I find a teacher, even though I don't have any money? How can I find a mentor? How can I find a life coach? How can I have somebody who I can work with and bounce things off of? I don't know the answer to that. Here's something I've learned. You know, I know something about you, agent of the universe. I know something about your limitations in your life. So it would be really easy for me to say, oh, well, for you, oh, because of your limitations, no, you can't. It would be really easy for me to do that. But what I've come to learn, and again, this is important, everybody needs to internalize this. What I've come to learn is that everything is available to everybody. So, you know, it would be unfair of me to say to you, agent of the universe, well, you know, because of your life conditions, you can't do the things I did. That takes the pressure off you, you know. It's a very woke thing. It makes me sound like I'm very tolerant of other people's limitations. But the universe doesn't work like that. The universe is designed in such a way that if you make the decision to find a teacher, even though things are much more difficult for you than they are for somebody else, you will find one. Because remember, what am I talking about? I've been talking about you can go to the quantum field and create whatever you want. So you can go to the quantum field and create a teacher. So, yep, the answer to your question, it has to be a physical human. So now that you know that, and this is what I've done, you can just accept that, you know what, the universe will provide a teacher for me if I'm committed to finding one. And whatever resources I have, oh, you need resources? Well, guess what? Then you can go to the quantum field if what you need is money. You can go to the quantum field and commit to having money come to you. You act as though you have the money. You go out and find somebody. You got to pay somebody. You know, you'll manifest whatever you want to manifest if you're committed to having everything that you want, everything that you need. If you're not, then the manufactured limitations that you've created in your reality, I don't have any money, I live with my parents, I don't have this, you've created that those limitations will stop you. You'll go, you know what, I give up. So I've come to find out that everything is available to everybody if they decide that that's what they want, even though in the physical realm it is much more difficult. I'm seeing here that Valiant Gordon, what is this? Okay, I don't know what that is. Valiant Gordon, I think I've seen your name before. The way this works is if you want to ask a question, ask a question. If you want to share a feeling, share a feeling. The rest of that stuff is kind of meaningless to me. And I'm on the fence as to whether or not, I can't tell if you're trying to, I can't tell where you're at with that. So I encourage you to actually ask a question or, share a feeling. Dabbler Deluxe, look above you. Do you see Agent of the Universe? Look at his word question and yours. What's the difference? Paying attention and putting effort. What did I say I wanted? So pay attention, put effort. Next time you write a question, I'd like to see that so that I'll be able to see it and answer it. You say, is the amount of energy we can generate the limiting factor in how fast things manifest or what manifests? No. And that's an assumption. Who said that you can generate, certain amounts of energy? And who said that has, I understand the thought process. But again, what this means, bear in mind, again, your identity determines what you hear. Because I've already repeated numerous times before you wrote that question that the quantum field has everything in it. And that you can go there and in the quantum field decide what is created. I didn't say anything about energy, but that's coming from you. So you already have this pre-written assumption within you that if you don't have enough energy, you can't create it. And you're bringing that in. I've never said that. In fact, I said the opposite. So why is it you didn't hear? Because you are allowing your identity to tell you what you think and what you believe, and you're allowing your identity to filter out what doesn't jive with your definitions of yourself. I don't have enough energy. I have to find the energy to make something happen. I never said that. Not once did I say that. In fact, I said the opposite. So the question is, why didn't you hear it? So you can get rid of that assumption right now. It doesn't matter how much energy you have or don't have because the quantum field is infinite. And it will respond to your your order. I will tell you what will the thing again is the identity. What will limit your ability to program from the quantum field determines the identity that you have accepted and that you act on. So I'm sitting here telling you that the light beings keep telling me that I'm a deity. I believe you're a deity as well. Now, I am expanding into that because if I were to completely expand into what they're telling me, I would phase out of this reality altogether. So I'm still here, physically here. So it means that I'm still operating from within the limitations of my own definition. But I am aggressively expanding that on a daily basis. And I got to tell you, on a daily basis, I go through a crisis of, fear of dying. It happens almost daily. When I do these meditations, I'm like in bliss, but when I come back in my body, I'm messed up. Sometimes I'm messed up about it for days. I'm in a state of fear, or discomfort, of confusion. Because how can that be real? But I know that all that is that's my identity expanding. And that's the result. I'm dying to a smaller version of myself. So since I know that pain and that confusion means I'm going to grow, just like when you go to the gym and you lift weights and the next day your muscles are sore, I'm going to grow. I actually seek it out now. So I'm doing the same thing you are, um, but that's my goal. My goal is to get to that point. I want to get to. I don't want any limitations. I want to be able to do literally anything and everything that I choose, and that can only happen if I change my identity. And then I'll be able to take actions, and then I'll be able to go to the quantum field and literally do anything and everything. And that's my goal. You say, I've been trying to reverse my age. So stop trying. Trying means that you're going to fail. So just stop trying. So Dabbler Deluxe, it makes me ask, are you doing any of the, I don't know if you're new to the channel. If you're brand new to the channel, then of course the answer is no, but are you doing any of the practices I teach? Have you been onto the channel and gone to the playlists and done, do the whole breath for 10 minutes a day and then do interdimensional meditation? You can do the guided interdimensional meditation. I just gave you one right here. Quantum field meditation. You do that every day and go to the quantum field and imagine yourself 10 years younger. You want to be 10 years younger? Imagine yourself 10 years younger. This is, and just to back this up, this isn't just New Age nonsense. Again, Joe Dispenza, my new hero. People do these meditations. They focus on joy and peace and happiness. They get out of the mirror back and forth of trying to resolve conflicts that can't be resolved and stress and all of that nonsense. And they get beyond that in their meditations, and they then start imagining themselves happy and healthy, and their DNA gets rewritten and their telomeres extend. That's reversal of age, having your telomeres extend. And that should be impossible, but people are doing it just by meditating, opening up their pineal gland and meditating on being happy, and all of a sudden they start getting healthier. So that isn't something that you try to do, that's something you do. Just go do it. What else? Atham question. Do all actions have the effect of rooting your feelings into a chosen identity regardless of intent, or is it only the actions that are born of fear? So Atham Animist. All right, let me look at your question again. Do all actions have the effect of rooting your feelings into a chosen identity? Your actions will have the effect of rooting you into an identity. The question is whether or not that's the identity that you want. So you can't escape that. You can't escape your identity will determine your actions. And you can't escape the fact that if you want to change your identity, you have to change your actions. So decide who you want to be. Even though you don't feel like you're that person, just decide who you want to be and then take the actions that that person would take. When you take the actions that that person would take and you commit to those actions, you will become that person even if you don't feel like it. Again, this movie Kumare, the guy didn't feel. If you were to ask him when he wasn't around those students, you would ask him, are you a guru? He'd say, hell no, I'm not a guru. I don't know anything about this. It's all nonsense. I'm just pretending to be one. And I'm telling people what I want them to learn, which is that they are the masters of their own destiny. They don't need anybody else to tell them. I'm telling them that, but I'm pretending to be a guru who tells them that. Well, by pretending to be a guru and telling people who are acting like he's a teacher, because he came out and said, I'm a teacher. That's the amazing thing about this. A guy who didn't believe he was a teacher, who didn't believe in anything spiritual, he showed up and he committed and he said to people he didn't know, he said, I am a mystical teacher. And here's what I teach. Do you want to learn from me? By taking those actions, they said yes. And they acted as though he was a teacher, and they took his suggestions. That's all that a teacher is. A teacher gives suggestions and the student follows the suggestions because they trust the teacher. That's it. Doesn't matter whether he feels like one or not. It means nothing that he didn't feel like one. It meant zero. It had zero effect on their transformation. And it had zero effect on the fact that he started losing his identity. He started being confused as to who he was. His identity was fluid at that point. What was the thing that changed it? He took actions of the person he was wanting to represent. He had an idea of who this teacher is, and he created a teacher that was honest. He never lied to them. He never did anything that he didn't actually have empathy for. So when you see him and he's putting his third eye towards somebody's third eye, and they're in trouble and they're wanting to work through his life, he's actually there wanting to help. So his intentions were there. He was honest in his intentions, and his actions were in alignment with his true self, which is he didn't want people to be lied to and manipulated. He was completely honest and real, but he just gave himself permission to act in a specific way. And it became true. So if you take actions born of fear, then you're going to create a fearful identity, which is going to create a challenging, painful life. If you take actions that aren't born out of fear, even if you have fear, but if you're taking actions that are contrary to your fear, even if you don't believe them, the actions themselves will create an identity which will be uploaded to the quantum field, which will then be created in your physical life. I can remember this 35 years ago. I was very messed up internally. I was not in a good spot internally. I had a lot of anger. When I allowed myself to have the anger, I'd walk down the street and, if it was a full sidewalk, everybody would just get out of the way. They could just feel how angry I was. But if I could still be that angry, and then I would listen to, my 12-step friends who would say, act as if. They'd say, act as though you care about other people. And even if what was inside of me was I wanted to punch somebody in the face or tell them off or, isolate or run away or something, I would then remember, act as though you care about them. And so I would say things like, how are you? Can I help? And you would care. I would act as though I cared. And then what would happen is people would say, I really like being around you, Mike. You're so honest and you're so real and you have so much empathy. And I'm like, oh my God, these people have no idea what I'm feeling inside. And it's true. What they were responding to is that I was taking honest actions. I wasn't lying to them. I was taking honest actions because I wanted to follow the instructions that were given to me. And so I acted as if. I acted as though I cared. I acted as though I was nice. I acted as though I was confident. I acted as though. And when I acted that way, people responded as though it was true. The quantum field is no different. The quantum field doesn't care what you feel. It cares what you project. And the easiest way to project something is to act in accordance with it. When you act in accordance, even if it's contrary to your feelings, the quantum field goes, oh, you want that. It cares much more about your actions than it does your feelings. This is where the law of attraction fails miserably. Law of attraction, the assumption is that the quantum field cares what you're feeling right now. And it doesn't care what you're feeling. The quantum field loves you enough. It's a conscious being. And it says, I know you're human and you got all kinds of crazy freaking emotions all over the place, but I'm here to take your order. So tell me what you want. Your actions are the order slip. And the quantum field looks at your action and goes, okay. If you act out of fear, it says, oh, so you want to be more afraid. Great. I will create more problems for you. You're afraid, but you're acting as though you trust, and you're acting as though you want good things, even though your programming makes you feel unworthy of it. I don't care about that, but you're acting as though you deserve it, so I'm going to give it to you. What else? Agent of the universe. What kind of teacher do you recommend? I look for it in my area. Look, I don't know. People work with me. You can find an online teacher. Find somebody online. Look, again, you can find whatever you want. You don't want to pay any money. There are plenty of people out there that'll teach you for free. Now, you got to find somebody that actually empowers you. I'm not saying find the first person and become their student. I mean, they have to have something you want. But, again, agent of the universe, I don't know. You have your limitations. I don't know. You're asking me what you should look for. I don't know. What do you want? What do you want? Go find what you want. The other thing is, don't get bent out of shape over these things. I know you well enough to know that if I say something, the way your brain works is that you're going to start telling yourself how you're not good enough and you're not doing it enough. And then that's going to be the thing. And you're just going to be focused on that. I'm not good enough because Mahadeva said I need to go find a teacher. And so give yourself a break. Go back to what it is that you want. You've got a therapist, probably, if I remember correctly. Why don't you ask your therapist? See what I mean? If you just think about it, there's obvious answers. Oh, I could ask my therapist. Stop beating yourself up so much. What else? Rami, question. Loki is my favorite god in Norse mythology. How can I work with him, and what do you think he can teach me? What are you asking me for? Why don't you ask Loki? I mean, he's your favorite god, so you must believe he exists. You must believe that there is a consciousness out there named Loki. Why don't you ask him? Why don't you go into meditation and say, Loki, if you're out there, I want to work with you. Will you manifest? Will you guide me to you? Find somebody who worships Loki. Say, how do you worship Loki? I mean, he makes it pretty clear. What I've done, I'll tell you what I've done to interact with Loki, is I take my favorite beverage. I don't drink alcohol. If I did, I would, but I don't. And I don't recommend anybody else drink alcohol. I think ultimately there's just no benefit in it. And there's far more bad things in it than good things. But, if it was me and I wanted to hang out with Loki, let's see, I've got my kombucha cola here. I would get 2 glasses and I would pour kombucha cola in each one, and I would go hang out in the backyard, or I would go someplace I wanted to be, because what Loki hates is he hates pretension. If you try to, treat Loki the way you would treat, some other god, where you heap on the pretension or make a big ritual out of it, Loki hates that. So the other thing is, if you like Loki, you've read about him, so you know his character. So you don't need to ask me. And I only did this because I read it in the myths. He doesn't like that. All he does is he destroys people who are dishonest or who are putting on airs. He hates that. And he got his feelings hurt because Odin didn't offer him some ale, some mead, in one of the myths. And he reminds Odin, he says, you said that we're blood brothers, and you didn't offer me anything. So the thing is, you honestly ask him to sit down with you, and you pour him a glass of whatever you're drinking, and you sit down with him, and you ask him to be your friend. And you talk to him, and you share your deepest secrets, your deepest fears. You don't try and convince him, don't try and make him think you're something you're not. You just open up and get as vulnerable as possible and ask for his help. That's what I would do. But you could ask him yourself and see what he tells you. What do I think he can teach you? That's between you and him. That's between you and him. It's none of my business. What else? Anything else? Nothing else. Okay, so we're done. All right, guys, so that's the deal. Again, if you're new to the channel, this channel isn't about you listening to me talk, although I'm grateful for every single person that comes on here and listens to me talk. This channel is about you doing the work, and I'm going to tell if you're doing the work. And the other thing is, if you're not doing the work, at some point I'm probably going to offend you, and you're going to find a reason to leave. The people who get the most offended are the people who don't do the work. And so, you know, and I'm going to know. I'm going to know when you talk. I'm going to know where you're at if you're doing the work. I'm going to respond much better if you are doing the work. So do the work. What is that? You can go onto the channel. Again, look for the playlists. Do something. Any one of those exercises, at least 10 minutes a day. If you're really serious, then go here to thunderwizard.com, subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. And again, for people, you know, unfortunately, some people get confused on there, but it shouldn't be challenging because once you log in, there's going to be boxes on the bottom. In fact, let me show you. I took a screenshot. Let me see if I can find it. I took a screenshot of what happens when you log in. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. Let me change the name on here. Okay, so let me load that up for you so you can see how easy it is. Just give me 1 second. There it is, screenshot. All right, so this is when you log in, right, into the thunderwizard.com, the Patreon channel. You log in, you're going to see this, and you see these boxes? Right there on the opening page, you see these boxes. The left one says Lightning Qigong. The second from the left says 90 Day, and then it says Qigong, and then it says Meditation, and then it says Shamanism. So if you subscribe to the Warrior 90 Day Lightning Qigong, click on Lightning Qigong, and those videos will come up. There's also a search bar. You see above there, it says Search Posts. You can type in whatever you want. Again, it saddens me and frustrates me that people get confused. It's right there in front of you. If you looked for it, you would find it. So, but people are still getting confused. That's how you find what you're looking for. And then you can see below that is the latest video that I uploaded. That's going to always be there. But now you know at least a little bit of how to navigate. Okay? All right, that's it, guys. For me, let's see, where's my... any last minute questions come up? I don't see anything else. All right, guys, that's enough for me. I wish you all the best. Thank you for showing up. And yeah, I'm sure I'll be on here very soon. If you leave comments in the actual video and I like the comments, I'll make a video about it. Nothing else. Okay, that's it. Follow the links. And I'll see you guys all next time. Take care.